then even more crazy things happened. We thought that these models would be the domain of companies who'd spent $100 million to train them. GPT-3 I think cost a couple $1 billion to train. It was, I can't go and procure myself a few billion just to train a model. And neither can most of us. I mean, maybe some of you could. But most of us can't. And that means it was like closed. And there were a few well-connected, wealthy individuals that had access to this technology. And suddenly that changed. 3 companies at the same time released models in 2023. And now you can just download one of these things and run them on your laptop. If your laptop has, 200 gigs of RAM. But I mean, that's crazy. And Google started freaking out. We have no moat. OpenAI has no moat. None of us have all this money we spend, but everybody has access to the models. But that's great, because everybody has access to the models. We could do things with them. And this was also an awesome moment. We started downloading these models and using them, because why not? And it was great. Companies who were very nervous to give their data to OpenAI are not nervous to spin up a GPU in their data centers and let us enable them to talk to their data, to look at their documents, to extract data from it. Awesome. And now, 2024 suddenly, it wasn't just text. Images were suddenly in the mix. Audio was in the mix. They were multimodal. Multimodals were multimodal. All of these models started releasing multimodal versions, which is great. Suddenly, this year, even open source models are multimodal. And there's also this idea of test time scaling. Things you can use a reasoning model. You guys heard of reasoning models? Basically, the idea is I'm spending a lot of money on compute to train this thing. And if I spend more money, you know how they're throwing money at this thing? It stops getting better. It plateaus. No one knows why, but it stopped getting better. Maybe because we ran out of internet to train it on. So now you're sitting here. So what do? We're like, oh dear, but we still have all this money. So they threw the money instead at spending more compute cycles when you are asking it a question, to basically just use the tokens that it has, the output tokens, to kind of meander around until it gets to a better solution. And they trained this mostly on programming and mathematics problems where there's a well-known solution. You're allowed to emit a bunch of rubbish tokens, and then you get to the answer. And it was fascinating what these machines did in thinking mode. You get a sanitized version from ChatGPT, but if you go and download a DeepSeek model and run it yourself, it will suddenly speak in German, and then Chinese, and then it puts down some random numbers, because those tokens aren't trained in the normal way of the one that's most likely to come next. No, it was allowed to learn to emit whatever it likes while it's getting to a solution. So it changes language. It's very interesting. But what do you get when you have something that can use tools, which is what agents are. Basically, the model is now allowed to call an external tool. Something that is a reasoning model, it can reason, and it's multimodal. Well, the funnest thing I've got to do with this, and you can try this on O3 yourself, it's very fun, is you give it a picture and you tell it, where was this picture? It's not particularly useful, but it's really interesting to see it think. So this is a picture. Do you guys know where this is? Well, it does. Gave it this picture, and it thinks for 1 minute and 50 seconds, and that's your first clue that this is a hard problem. It's zooming into the grass. It's I think this is most likely indigenous to South Africa, maybe the Cape region, and then it looks at all the different features, and eventually it's like Kirstenbosch. That's where this is. And it's really good. You'll have a lot of fun trying it. It's like Sherlock Holmes. It's continuously reasoning about different pieces, and it puts it together like a GeoGuessr. It's a lot slower than a GeoGuessr, but it's pretty impressive what it can do. That's the state of technology in 2025. I've lived this journey of I couldn't tell the difference between a cat and a dog to I can tell you where any photo was taken and in free text. And the interesting thing about living this journey is every time one of these upsets happened, it was going to be the end of the world and the end of jobs and the end of everything. And every time one of these upsets happened, I was like, awesome, let me use that. And every time one of these upsets happened, I did use that and I made money from it. So I think the most important thing is to have your finger on the pulse.